Hello? Hello? That looks better.
Never mind. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hold on. I'm losing my mind.
Can you see me?
I can't see you yet. Something
No.
weird is
It
happening
says,
where
it says you have
Okay.
to start the video. You have to give me
yes,
permission.
yes. I'm trying to make you co-host right now. It was blocking the I had to make the screen bigger. It was blocking the thingamajigger.
The
I've
thingamajigger.
done this before.
Isn't that the technical term? The thingamajigger.
A thingamajigger. Hang on, I'm gonna run out of the room for just a second, so I'll let you practice sharing your screen. I made you co-host, so you should be good to go with sharing your screen
Let me
now
see.
and video.
Okay, so that looks like I can share, so that's good. Let's just do a quick. Can you see?
I can. Okay.
Okay, you got that. So perfect, and I'll get my video going, and I'm ready to go.
All right, awesome. I'll be right back.
Okay. So we need. That's not good.
I'm starting a webinar right now, so please don't come down and interrupt me.
Okay, good. Let's go full screen. Okay, so let me turn the heater off.
Okay.
It's so funny.
Sorry.
I get the same instructions. Okay, going on a live webinar. No dogs, no banging.
Oh my gosh. All right, sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Oh,
I
I just did the same thing you did. I'm going on a live webinar, no dogs, no banging, and be quiet.
That's exactly right. Well, I was so excited that kids were going back to school. I didn't really remember, or I should have assumed that they would do e-learning this week because of the holiday. But
Right.
I wasn't planning on having kids home, but that's
Oh,
all
well,
right. They're good. They're good.
that, it's life. I mean, lots of people, their kids walk by, their dog, whatever. It's life.
That's exactly right.
I don't
I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. If they come down and interrupt me, they come down and interrupt me. They're my kids, right? But
And it makes us look like real people.
that's exactly right.
The other thing, people love it. They go, oh, look what happened there. Ha ha. You're like, yeah, there it is.
Oh, well, and I hadn't seen my I think I don't know if I told you or not that I'm getting divorced.
No.
We probably didn't dig into that much
we didn't
personal
dig into that.
stuff.
I never know what to say because sometimes I feel like saying congratulations, good on you. And then you think, oh, maybe that's not right.
It's a congratulations for sure. I'm sorry, I just got to reply to this message super quick. My team is helping me manage all of this today, and we're going to broadcast onto Facebook. So got to make sure everybody's set up and in place. And actually, I'm glad I said that to myself because I need to start. That takes forever sometimes to get it set up properly. So anyway, so I hadn't seen my kids. It was just the way our schedule worked out. It was really weird where we went almost 2 weeks with them with my ex. And it was a really long time. So I was in the middle of a big paid workshop the other day, and my daughter came in and I was like, sorry, y'all, I have to give her a hug. I haven't seen her in a week and a half.
Yeah. Everybody goes, hey.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes you likable.
So exactly. Oh my goodness. I mean,
it's all good.
But I'm excited about this because I like, other than what you've told me the other day about Fictionary, I know so little, and I knew that we were doing this presentation, so I haven't done a lot of digging around, but I've got a little slide that I'm just going to go full screen and share while we're waiting on people to come in, that directs them to the Black Friday post that has your stuff on there too. So
and I changed the discount at the end of this presentation because we'd originally agreed to 20%. I took it out and put in the 50% to match Black Friday. Right?
Wow. Okay. So I'll tell people, what's the coupon code?
Black Friday 2020.
Oh, okay. It's the same for everybody.
It's at the end of the thing. Well, we had one for you, and then I thought, well, that's just silly. If we're going to give 20% here and 50% here, let's just do the 50%. So I thought I would just say we had one especially designed for you, but then we're doing Black Friday. So you have the bigger discount. Yay.
Okay, cool. But it's the same discount regardless. So Fictionary. Okay. That's perfect. Because then if no matter when they grab it, it'll be the same thing. Story structure.
It just seems silly to go, here's 20%, but if they knew about the other one, it's 50.
Okay, cool. Well, that's wonderful. We'll make sure that, that's nice. Facebook, a lot of the things that Facebook has done lately are a little bit crazy, but one of the nice things they've done is make it easier to go live across multiple pages, which is amazing. Nice. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start webinar, share my screen, and we will let everybody flow into here. Excellent. Hello, everyone. As you are funneling in, we are just going to maybe I'm going to share my screen if I can get to what I'm looking for. So crazy, such crazy times. Okay, here we go. All right, what did I just share? Are you looking at my Canva page?
Now it says.
That's not what I wanted to share. You know what? I'm just going to stop this because I don't know what I'm sharing.
It's a presentation.
It's a little crazy sometimes. Okay, everybody, welcome. Come on in. We had a full registration list today, so we are broadcasting live onto Facebook. So should you get kicked out for any reason and you can't get back in, don't worry. You can head on over to either the Women in Publishing Summit page on Facebook or the Write Publish Sell Facebook page, and we are live on there. And if you can't find it either of those places, we always load these to YouTube directly after that. And I'm going to just share this quick thing while we're waiting on everybody to come in. So please go ahead and let us know where you are coming in from, and we'll give just like 2 seconds for everybody to filter in. I wanted to share this quick link with everybody. I don't know why nothing is working for me today. Why won't it go into present mode? I don't know. But anyway, this link right here, let me go ahead and copy and paste this link. Kristina, I swear I'm not normally this chaotic. It's the last day before Thanksgiving. I'm a little nuts. I've never seen it pop my name into a box before. I don't know what's happening, but we're going to just put this link right into.
Hey, there's someone from British Columbia. I just moved from BC to Ontario. Nice.
Oh my goodness. As everybody's popping in here, we're just getting organized and doing all the things that we do while we give everyone just a second to come in here. But I wanted, while we were waiting on this, for everybody to know about the Black Friday specials that we have going on. Because guess what? When we originally started this, Nancy, I can't find the chat. Can you post the link in the chat for me, please? Because it's not showing up as an option for me. Oh, there it is. We were going to do a special discount for Fictionary just for everybody on this presentation. And then Kristina was nice enough to say, you know what, we were doing a 50% off Black Friday sale anyway. So we're just going to offer that up to your audience as well. So if you go over to that link that I just posted, womeninpublishingsummit.com/Black-Friday-writers, or just go to womeninpublishingsummit.com, go to the blog, you'll find it there easily as well. You'll see the 66% off discount for the next Women in Publishing Summit conference, as well as 50% off of Fictionary. So you might want to wait until after the conference so that you can see what in the heck we're talking about, but that link is out there and we will post it frequently, I am sure, throughout the event so that you do not miss it. Okay, enough of that. Let's get started with our presentation today. I'm really excited to bring you Kristina from Fictionary. So Kristina Stanley from Fictionary. We met a few weeks ago, actually. Was it a few weeks ago? It might have been months. I don't know. Things are so weird in Corona
Just call it
time.
this fall, you know.
Yes. And she's just one of those people that I felt like I immediately connected with. Kristina Stanley is the CEO of Fictionary and the ALLi Story and an ALLi Story editing advisor. And she's going to teach us where to begin a story edit. And some of you might think, editing, okay, how does this fit in with copy editing and developmental editing? And from what she told me, it's completely different. So I'm excited. I had never really thought about editing the structure of my story. And I'm just going to turn it over to you because I want to learn from you too today.
Excellent. Well, hi, everybody. Super excited to be here. I've got a lot of material to go through. So hopefully you're ready to take some notes. I'd like to give a lot of information along with sharing a bit about Fictionary Storyteller, which is for writers. But mostly what I want to share here today is how you can, once you finish Nano and catch a breath and have your draft, what you can actually do with it and have some concrete steps. So I'm a writer myself. I started as a mystery writer and then I moved into editing. So I know what it's like to be a writer. I know how important it is to tell a good story. I've been published both traditionally and as a self-published author. So I know both sides of that. And so what I'm sharing you today is a bit of, it's my experience, but it's a lot about editing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Awesome.
Okay, and let's go. So that should be full screen. A nice woman typing says story editing. Is that there?
It sure is. I see it.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is what is story editing, which of course Alexa mentioned. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the most common story issue. And I interviewed hundreds of editors around the world who do fiction editing and asked them what was the biggest issue they see most often. And I was surprised by the answer. So I'm going to share that. I'm going to give you some of the top story elements to evaluate with concrete actions. I'm going to leave you with a checklist and an end goal for after Nano. Okay, so I've done Nano twice. And I wrote a book in Nano because I needed one to use as part of our Fictionary Certified Story Coach program. So I needed a book that people could edit, and I needed to write it quick. So Nano was my go-to. Yay, Nano. It's you know, it's a rush to write your story, and I mean that both in a hurry and a rush, as it's really exciting doing Nano. I felt a lot of pressure. You know, halfway through the month, I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? I watch my word count every day. So, you know, stressful, but great way to get your words written. So super helpful for that. And then I ended up with a blob of 80,000 words. So what to do with that when it's either printed or it's sitting in an MS Word document. And that's what we're going to cover today. All right, so here's where you are in your journey, right in the center where it says write. So you've got many options as an author these days, and it's important to find the options for your particular journey that suits you as a writer. And I want to state out front, this is your artistry. It belongs to you. And so you're going to get a lot of input along the way from tools, from professional editors, from beta readers, from whatever. And the most important thing to remember is it's your story and it needs to feel right to you. And so I drew a circle here because I think the way it typically works for writers, you go round and round, you write it, you edit it, you have somebody else edit it, you write it, you edit, and round you go until you go out the end and you have a published novel. So this can be a long process. Okay, so what is story editing? So basically, it's a structural review and revision of your manuscript, focusing on characters, plot, settings, and the story you are telling. And you'll often hear the term structural editing, and really story editing is like structural editing, but for fiction only. There's a lot of focus on structural editing for nonfiction, and we're not talking about that today. We're talking about how you create the best possible story, not focusing on the exact words or the grammar, the punctuation. So when should you story edit? And now I recommend you have a full draft written so that when you're doing it, you can look at the process as a whole. So for everybody here who's doing Nano, it's Nano month, which is why we related it to Nano. Finish Nano. Don't even think about story editing. Just finish it and get it done. And then, you know, maybe take a break and maybe even enjoy Christmas and come back in January, whatever works for you. You want to do it before you copy edit and proofread. And the reason I say this is when a writer goes through a heavy story editing process, often scenes are deleted, added, rewritten, cut in half, mixed together. And so if you spend a lot of time copy editing and proofreading, you kind of wasted all of that time. So it's good to do a little bit as you go and pay attention to it. And sometimes you just want to do it because you can't revise and you want to be productive, and that's all good, but your main focus should be on your story. You should do your story editing before you send to beta readers. I found that I kind of got one shot at my beta readers for each book, and you don't want to waste that shot. You want to get most value out of your beta readers, and beta readers will tolerate proofreading errors, a little bit of copy editing errors, but what they won't tolerate is a bad story. And if you want repeat beta readers, which I did because I wrote a series, it really helps to have that story solid first. You certainly want to do it before you send to a professional editor. And not everybody has to go to a professional editor. That's not my recommendation, but lots of writers choose to, and that's great too. And the reason I say you should do your own story edit first is, one, a professional editor who receives a high-end story has to work a lot harder to help you improve it. And now they're looking at the difficult issues. If it's not a fleshed out story, it's much easier for an editor to do these things. And so if you want to get value for your money, I'd send it after you've done a story edit. And the other reason is once you've done a story edit, you purposely looked at your story and you're opinionated about its structure. And then when you get advice from an editor, you also know what you want to accept or not accept from their advice, because I guarantee no matter what editor you have, you're not going to accept 100% of their advice, and you shouldn't. It's your book, right? So the editor is really there to help you make the most of your story, but without impacting your voice, without impacting the intent of your story. That's all yours. So let's look at some of the difference between story editing, copy editing, and proofreading. And I put this here, if anyone wants to take a screenshot, they can have it. It's a great checklist to remind yourself of what you're looking at. So one of the things on story editing is the story arc, and that's the placement of your key scenes. You want to look at your word count, and then everything else that I mentioned as you're going through the story, right down to flow and consistency and clarity. Copy editing is looking at all of your punctuation, grammar, sentence structure, repeated words. So it's down at the sentence level, and a good copy editor should be helping you write beautiful sentences. Proofreading, then this is where people get a little, the names are a bit confused, but proofreading should be something you've done when you're not changing anything. So a good proofreader should point out typos. You got an extra space here. You don't capitalize chapter the same way for each chapter. You're using inconsistent scene break characters, things like that. But nothing to do with the story or your sentences. That's all already done. All they're doing here is looking for errors that you can fix. And we all know how hard that is, because every book, there's an error in it when it's published and you can't get away from it.
This is such a great graphic, Kristina. We get asked this question so often. So thank you for sharing that.
You know, and part of the reason I share it is that when a writer is looking for an editor, I want them to understand what they need from an editor, and also to be able to interview that editor. Are they getting the service that they paid for? So that the more a writer understands about what they want from an editor, the easier it is for them to get the editor that matches what they're looking at, depending on where they are in their journey. Okay, so the most common story issue. So this ended up being structuring a story into scenes. So I thought it was going to be control over point of view characters. I see that a lot in books that I edit, but apparently not. This is an area where a lot of writers have struggles. And so we're going to talk about how to structure a story into a scene and how to perform a story edit on a scene by scene basis. So we'll talk first about what is a scene. So basically, it's a section of your story where a character or characters do something. So there's action or there's dialogue, and dialogue is often considered action because it's very active, of course. And within each scene, you're going to have characters, and you're going to have a plot, and you're going to have settings. And that's it. There's no magic about it. It's just something happens with some boundaries around it. The trick is now to figure out where to start and end scenes. Okay, so one of the first things you can do, so you've just left Nano and you've got your full manuscript there, and you probably just wrote it and you know, put in scene breaks here and there where you felt kind of you needed one. But what you want to do now is go through your whole story and set it up for a story editing success. And to do that, if you look at every time the point of view character changes, look at that as an opportunity to start a new scene. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as we go. If the location changes, that's also an opportunity to start a new scene. It's not to say you have to, but it is an opportunity when you're looking to reduce word count in a scene, or if you have to spend too many words changing locations, you can just start a new scene. And time of the scene, and what I mean by that is not, so it doesn't have to be an accurate time, but anytime the time has changed in the story. So is there a jump in an hour? Is there a jump in a day? Did you jump back 200 years? Anytime there's some kind of change in time is another opportunity. And these three things together, if you look at making new scenes starting at when these change, it makes it really easy for the reader to follow the flow of your story. And so the first big activity is to go right through it and just focus on this and get your structure set up. Okay. Then, of course, you need to know where to end a scene. And so now your scenes are already ended automatically. If you've gone through and you've put in all of your scene breaks for a new scene, well, of course, the one before it just ended, so it's there. But here, everybody talks about the first line in is most important, but the last line out is also important because you want your reader to go, oh, I must read further. I can't put this book down. I have to at least peek at the next scene. And so you want to use variety with cliffhangers and unanswered questions, plot twists, secrets, reveals, all kinds of things. So that at the end of every scene, ask yourself, what's there that's going to entice the reader to just take a peek at the next scene? Okay, so that's a scene. The next thing we're going to go through and evaluate, once you've done all of that, I know it's a lot, and revising a novel is a big job. There's just no way around it. But the first thing I like to do after I've broken my novel down into scenes is I name each scene in 3 words or less. And you can see on the right, this is one of my books, the one that I wrote in NaNoWriMo, where I've titled every scene mostly in 3 words or less, except scene 10, which has 4. So maybe that's an issue. And once that's done, I know what every one of these scenes is about. And so I can look quickly through here and I know in my mind what that scene is about. If I'd use too many words, I can't read it all. I want a very quick way. It gives me an after draft outline. So as I'm revising, I can scroll up and down and find the scenes that I want. And I use it for reference as I'm editing. If, for example, I want to remember what characters knew this character in scene 8, for example, is pregnant. Well, then I can just go in there and see who's in that scene. And then I know, okay, they know this piece of information, but the characters not in that scene don't know it. And so this is one of the first things you can do in scene naming. We actually call a story element, and it falls under the plot category. So I'm going to lead into the next thing is the purpose of the scene and how naming a scene helps you do that. So the purpose of a scene is why is it in your story? And if you can't answer that question, maybe it shouldn't be in your story. So there needs to be a reason. And here in Fictionary, what we're showing here, I mean, I haven't edited the full novel, so not all of it's confirmed yet. But I've got my key scenes listed, so I know which ones are those, and that was their purpose. I've got scenes at the beginning that are character development to build suspense. I wrote this one, I don't know why it's here. So here's a scene I would look at and go, okay, I don't know. But I like to go through all of this and then come back and see how many I don't know. And then I know how focused my story is.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Of course you can.
Will you be kind of talking about the tool as itself at the end and showing us how, or can I ask a question about the tool now? I don't want to ask the question if you're going to go into it.
Yep, go ahead and ask, sure.
Sure. So, okay. So for those of us who are totally brand new to our tool, we upload the entire document in there. And then does it pull things apart that we go in and label, or do we have to? Okay. So it would kind of pull it apart. Then we go in and label. What happens if somebody has no idea about like brand new writers, whether it's a climax or foreshadow or inciting incident? Is there anything that helps people figure out those things?
Yes. And I will show you a screen at the end. But
okay, good.
Basically what happens is storyteller takes the manuscript and it scans it from beginning to end, pulls out all of the character names and it links them to scenes. It draws a story arc. It shows a word count per scene graph, so you can look at pacing. It has character insights. Will show you how many scenes are in a character, how many point of view each character has. It does a whole host of that. And then within Fictionary, it's really like having your own extensive library, because for every story element, there's a little question mark, and it gives what the element is and why it's important to a writer. And it also shows you how to actually use that element with your story. Wow. And so some of the things you fill out as you go, like the purpose, you have to know that the key elements from the story arc, like the climax, etc., are filled out, but all of the rest you put in and decide. We have a pre-made list, or you can just make up your own purposes depending on your genre. They can be quite different, and just put it in, and then you can have a look at the end so that you know what the purposes are. And
Oh, that's
sometimes you can look at two and say, I don't know yet, but they kind of have a purpose and you can
Mhm.
join them, or, there's lots of stuff you can do once you realize, it's not as strong as it could be.
That's really cool. Thank you. I wanted to just throw that in there right now for, especially because I have a feeling there's probably a lot of people that aren't familiar with this tool at all. And
Right.
quickly, Simone wanted to know if the slides are going to be available afterward. Can we get a copy to share with
Of
everyone?
course.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. Certainly
Great.
can.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So back to the purpose. So widen your story. Does it relate to your overall plot? And the overall plot is typically what you can find. I recommend before you revise your story, write a little blurb. And that blurb is what would go on the back of a book. And that's what a reader would read before they read your story. And so in their mind, the plot is about whatever you've said in that one short paragraph. And so that's your overall plot. You don't need to know the ending, but just that's what your story is about. So it's a murder mystery where, Jane finds John and whatever, some little blurb. If it doesn't relate to the plot, it really probably shouldn't be in the story. If there's too many purposes in a scene, it can be just a mess. And so you need to look at, do you need to focus that scene? If it's clear, that's fine. But if you're finding you can't pull out the purpose, it could be because there's too many and it's scattered and it needs to be rewritten into 2 scenes or something. So here's where we talk a little bit about point of view and head hopping. So here, Fictionary, when it imports your manuscript, it's gonna make an attempt at who's got the point of view for the scene. So it's AI technology. So sometimes it gets it, but not always. But you can always change it. You just do a little click and you change who the point of view character is. And unless you're extremely talented on switching points of view mid-scene, have a lot of practice of it, I recommend you keep one point of view per scene, and that's it, and stick to it. And there's a few reasons. One, if you switch mid-scene, the reader can get confused because they're thinking, well, it started with Alexa, we're in her point of view, so everything that's seen and heard is what she's seeing, and all of a sudden we're in another character's, it's going to come across differently, and the reader has to stop and think, well, what happened there? It doesn't make sense. So that leads to confusion. It also leads to a lot of extra words, so that if it goes from Alexa to Kristina, then you have to explain that in your writing so that you've jumped from one to the other. And it slows the pacing when you do that. So I just recommend one, and that's where Fictionary can show you how many points of view you have, the order you have them in, and then you just look at and see, are you consistent within each scene? So here is what shows up in Fictionary. So this is a screenshot of all of the points of view characters. And you can see here, there's a lot. So way too many. So I can see right away, like, oh my, what the heck am I doing there with all these points of view? So I know as a writer, I have to go back, and for an adult fiction novel, 5 to 7 points of view are generally considered good. Too many more, it's really difficult to engage the reader. Game of Thrones is the obvious exception. There's many, but those are exceptions. Most books, you need more time with your point of view characters so that the reader will connect to them. And you're in control of the story. It's not kind of gotten away with you, which clearly you can see here from mine. You think, wow, that's just, a lot. So what happens when I revise in Fictionary? As I go and rewrite my scene, I change the point of view character to whoever I wrote it to. And then this report tightens up, and I can keep going and keep revising until I'm happy with the number of points of view. And then you want to look at, does your protagonist have the most? And they should. Otherwise, you need to be asking yourself, why are they the protagonist? Maybe it's a different character, and maybe your story is about someone else, and that's okay. But just be conscious about it and make a decision on it. On the bottom, you can see where it's got the initials. These are the characters, and here you can check how many scenes have gone between characters having points of view. And I want my protagonist in there regularly. And if there's a lot of scenes, then on the first scene of where a character shows up again, you want to be putting a little reminder of who that character is. Make it easy for the reader to be anchored in, okay, I know who this is. Don't make them flip back and go, who is this character? Which can happen if there's too much time. And again, as you go through this, this all updates as you're editing. Okay, so that's point of view. The next thing is the goal. So if a character doesn't have a goal in a scene, what are they doing? Nothing. So must have a goal. So the external goal is basically what they want in every scene. And the internal goal is usually something that's fixing a character need and typically a flaw. So you want to be looking back at your blurb again there should be clues of what that internal need is in the blurb. And that could be the same goal for that point of view character the whole way through the book. Doesn't have to change every scene. Typically an external goal changes every scene. If we look at a thriller book where there's a car chase, well, the car chase is for character A to get character B. Well, when the car chase is done, now there's the next event that the protagonist has to achieve. And so the goal externally is going to change. The goal must always be related to the plot. So having a goal where character, wants to have a nap, that's nice. But really, who cares? It's not related to the plot. It's boring to the reader. And we don't want that. So you want to look at the goals and go, is it a goal? And does it have consequences? So if I don't get my nap, maybe a little grumpy, that's fine. There's no consequences there. But what if I have some illness and I really need that nap, or I physically can't function? Then there's a consequence. And then it becomes important. So it needs to be something, if the character can't get it, it's going to hurt them.
That's a really good example. I would just
Well,
thought I'd share that. That's a really good example.
Yeah, and so here, this is just a snapshot of what's in Fictionary, where for this particular scene, Jazz Cooper is the point of view. She's at a funeral and really having a hard time. And oh, look, I have a typo, survives the funeral. So that would be survive the funeral. So, you can just ignore my typo. I'm not a copy editor. I'm a story editor. I know what her internal goal is, and I know that it's related to the plot. So I just put check marks there. I didn't actually want to type it in. And if her goal fails, she's letting down her whole family. And this has something to do with the overall plot. I'm going to fix that typo. So with point of view goals, the sneaky things that tend to trip up a writer, if you're not paying attention and really looking for it, are there's no goal. There's too many goals, and then the writer just can't keep up. It's inconsistent with the character's personality. So if you've established that your protagonist is a coffee drinker, and then one scene they just really want tea, well, okay, it's not part of, that's a silly example, but it's not part of their personality. So when there's a goal, it has to be something that the reader would believe they would actually try for. It's easy to have goals that don't have consequences. So we mentioned that a little bit already. And the other thing that I see when I'm editing is a goal is achieved too easily. And so if a character has a goal at the beginning of the scene, and by the end of the scene, they get it. And then the next scene, they have another goal. And by the end of that scene, they get it. And so on and so on. You start to get bored as a reader, because obviously that character gets everything they want. And so then they're a boring character. And there needs to be a balance between, sometimes they have to get it, sometimes they get part of it, sometimes they don't get it at all, and that drives the story forward. Okay, and then, so we've looked at character, we looked at plot, and now we're on settings. So my two favorite story elements are choose where the scene takes place. And I say that deliberately. Don't let a scene take place where it just feels natural. Pick it consciously and think about where is the best place for that scene. And the question I ask myself to figure that out is it the best place for emotional impact? So
that's a good question.
It's a really great question to make you think hard. If you're having, okay, so say I'm your boss, Alexa, and I'm going to fire you today, which is already nerve-wracking. But if the author who's writing the story wants to put me in a position of power and you in a position of weakness, so the emotional impact is I've got the power, you don't, you're coming to my office, my spot. But what if I have a fear of darkness, or I'm agoraphobic or something. And you as the author wants me to feel weak and Alexa to have the power in the scene. Well, let's make the scene take place outside in a parking lot at night with no street lights. It's completely empty. And there I've lost the power because I have this fear. This is my internal flaw in the story. And now Alexa's captured me in the parking lot, didn't let me get in the office because she knew she wanted the power, and she knows me because I'm her boss. So she forced the meeting there, right? And so you can completely change the dynamics of a scene by picking a different location. So for setting, and then here's a little sneak peek inside of Fictionary of the location, the time, what objects are in, using the senses, and just my favorite, emotional impact. So setting issues that you can have, too much or too little description. So too much means you're kind of boring the reader and they start to skim. Too little is the reader doesn't know where they are, and so they get confused. So an easy tip when you have beta readers, ask them, if you ask them if they're bored, they'll never tell you that because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But if you ask them, please just mark every place you skim. Same thing. And then you'll look at it and go, oh, look at all the description I had there. Maybe I could cut that back. Again, here, the description has to be consistent with the point of view character because we're in that character's point of view in that particular scene. So everything they see and that is described is how they would see it as a person. And so I'm a dog person and I'm out at a park, I'm going to notice the dogs in the park. And if you're a cat person and you're out, you're going to notice the cat in the park. And that's what I mean by being consistent. You want to be careful that the location is not cliche. So, okay, a couple's having an argument in a coffee shop. That's a little cliche. You want to make sure they're not repetitive unless it's the best thing for the story. Right. And then the last thing I'll say about settings, which is a little bit of copy editing, but when you're looking at the senses, don't filter. And by that, I mean, Kristina saw a bird out her window is filtering. But if you're already in my head in the window, or if you're already in my head in the scene, sorry, not in the window, the line can be a blue jay flew past the window, because obviously it's my point of view and I saw it. And so you get rid of the Kristina saw part. And that's important because it distances the reader from the character. And if you can tighten it and closen that relationship, you'll have more engagement from your readers. And then the last thing I'll say on the elements is every scene has to have tension. So what I want to qualify this with is tension is the expectation of something bad happening, and conflict, it's happening. And there can be lots of tension in a scene where conflict is happening. But if there's no tension in a scene, that's a good place for your reader to stop reading. There has to be some underlying emotion there that even if the characters are having a good time, there's a little worry in the reader's mind that that's not going to last. Everything is too good here, but there has to be hints in there so that the reader feels tension. Okay, so that's my quick summary of the story elements. Now, what I want to do is jump to a checklist. And again, you can have the charts, but you can also take a screenshot. So when you're editing your book, and this is what Fictionary is designed for, is to help you with all of these things, because it's all listed beside you or beside your text. All of these things are listed right there. So you can see each scene and each of the story elements with it. You want to check, once you've gone through and you've established that your book is broken into scenes, you want to check that you've got a strong opening hook and a strong closing hook. So make the reader want to start the scene and make them want to go to the next scene. You want to name your scene for the reasons we talked about. List the purpose, the point of view character, their goal, location, emotional impact, and does it have tension? And if you do just these, so there's 38 Fictionary story elements in Fictionary, but if you do just these, your story will already be more powerful and emotionally engaging for your reader. Okay, so I just want to do a little screenshot here of, this is the layout of Fictionary and what it looks like. So on what you're not seeing here, because it squished it too much, is I showed you at the beginning the list of chapters and scene names. That
Mhm.
shows on the left-hand side. And then in the middle is every scene, and that's where you do your editing. And then on the right side, you can edit character, plot, setting, and there's a place to put notes. And sometimes I find when I'm revising, I just want to keep doing it, but I have a thought, I want to put it down. And so I put it right there. And then you don't have to be distracted with that. You can just keep doing whatever piece you're working on. And then we have different writers. Some go through Fictionary where they do one element at a time. Some go through and do all of the character elements, all of the plot elements, all the setting elements, which is fine. And some go through and they do just the beginning ones. So you can skim and look at all the opening types and the entry hooks and is your scene anchored in point of view and time and setting. You can do all of that and then do the scene endings and bump through the scene endings to speed it up. But our recommendation really is that the writer figures out what works for them. And quite often writers know where their weak areas are. And they might know that they're awesome at setting, but a little bit weak on character. So maybe they just want to do those. And sometimes they find after working through Fictionary, they're stronger than they thought in some points and weaker than they thought in others. And so it's a continual learning process.
Yeah.
Behind the question marks here, the little blue question marks, there is a full library of what each of these things are.
Perfect.
And so when you're working on your story, you just look there. You don't have to go and look something up in a book. If you don't know what anchored means, you can look it up and it tells you right there.
This is mind blowing to me because it's really, when you pull apart the structure of a story, it's incredible how much actually goes into writing a fully developed structure, novel, all of those things.
Yep.
There's so much to know.
Well, and that's the problem, right? This is different than, say, if you took a writing course or an editing course and you go and you learn all that stuff, then you're expected to take that back somewhere, it's in your head and your books, and apply it to your story. Well, if you can't see both at the same time, I don't know, that's really difficult, I think.
Yeah.
And I built this first in spreadsheets because I was editing my own books and I needed a way to keep track of them. And I did that. And then once I had this whole extravagant thing built, we decided, well, let's build it in a proper app and not just me on my computer in my Excel spreadsheet. Much easier this way, I gotta say. So, and revising, it can take a long time. And
Yeah.
so, and sometimes you need to take a break. Like, for example, if you start after Nano and then you think, oh, it's Christmas, I don't want to. But then when you come back, you don't know where you were in the book and you got to start over. Well, here, because you know what you filled out and you can see it, you can mark the scenes as complete. And so you can keep yourself structured as you're going. And then it speeds it up a little bit if you're coming and going from it.
That's amazing.
Okay, so, and this is the end goal. So here, this is the story arc, and Fictionary draws this automatically for you when you first import your book. And is comparing it to commercially successful books. So the blue line is for the word count of your book, the boundaries for a commercially successful book and what has worked historically year after year after year. And they're all work the same. And when you start evaluating famous books, whether you like them or not, Twilight, she nailed every single plot point and her entry hooks and her exit hooks, and every piece of the story was there. And so there's a lot of data around about what makes a powerful story without boxing the writer in. So these are all guidelines, and I can't stress enough, it's your book and you're the artist, and you can always find rules or books that have been hugely successful that completely break the rules. So what we're trying to do is give you some guidelines, and then you can decide how to do it. So when your book comes in, the story arc draws, and every time you revise it, it draws again. And so if you move scenes around, add scenes, cut scenes, you'll see it develop. And one of the things I like, if you've used a professional editor, you can see by looking at this what your story arc looked at the beginning and what it looks like after you've taken their comments in and used them in your revisions, whether it's actually helping your book or not. So it's a really neat tool for that. So basically with your story, the inciting incident should happen somewhere between 15% and 0% of your story. If it doesn't happen before then, you'll know when you're reading a book and you can't quite figure out why you can't get into it. I'll bet it's because there's not an inciting incident fast enough. And that's the place where the protagonist world has just changed. So it's got to come soon enough that you keep your reader captured. Plot point 1 is somewhere between the 20 and 30% mark. And if it's not, start asking yourself, should it be? Does your story feel rushed if it's too close to the inciting incident? Does it feel like it's dragging if it's too far away? And that goes the same thing for the middle between, that should actually say 55%, 45 and 55%. Plot point 2 is between 70 and 80. And the climax is between 85 and 95. And that's because at the end of your story, you want enough time to give a satisfactory resolution, but not so much that the reader is starting to flip the pages. And within Fictionary, all of these plot points are defined for you. So you can go and look at, well, what is a plot point 2? And you can look and see within your book, do you actually have a plot point 2? And if you don't, and you need to write one, this will show you, okay, so it needs to be around a specific space in my story. And what that enables you to do is it's going to make you creative and think about, oh, I know what I could do here for a plot point, and it goes right in here and it fits in the right spot. And so this should be used really to help you be creative about your story and get it to the right place. Okay,
Really
so
cool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to throw out, I'm a big reader. And what I find if I get stuck editing, I like to read books because it triggers my imagination and it helps me actually finish my book. So this year, these are some of my favorites. Wired for Story, On Editing, Make a Scene, and The Artful Edit are all about revising your story. And The Anatomy of Prose is about revising at the sentence level. And even though we're talking about story editing, I threw that one in because it's a fantastic book. It's the best one I've seen on this topic. It's really funny, but it's also, I get asked quite often. So I've done all my story edit. What should I do next? And I often recommend, well, read this. It'll give you a good idea so that you can then move on as a writer and figure out how now, after you've got the story, you're going to do the sentence part. Okay. So this is just a little bit more about Fictionary. And we talked about, it draws things for you. It shows you your characters. The real goal here is so that you can see your story. And so instead of looking at 80,000 words in an MS Word document, you can actually see it broken out. The 38 Fictionary story elements are there to help you evaluate each piece. And it's to help you be creative. So when you look at, do I have an opening hook? It makes your brain think about, well, what could be an opening hook? Well, maybe I could do it this way or that way. And is that good? And how many opening hooks do I have that start this way? And it helps your brain turn on your creativity. So this is just one of the little things of someone we had recently write to us and just tell us about Storyteller. And her big thing was that it shaved years off her learning because it was all there for her in one place. And so I was pretty excited about that. So I like that one. So I wanted to put it here.
Well, I think especially if you really are new to the craft and really are struggling with some of these things. I mean, I'm sure you see this a lot working with first editing and with other editors and things like that. That so many times editors will receive manuscripts that are they're just nowhere near ready to go, and authors think that it's time to go out the door. And so yeah.
And I get that a lot as an editor. Somebody will send me a thing and saying it doesn't need much, and then once I finished editing, they go, oh, hey, it does. And that's fair. Like if you have an editor who says to you, wow, it's a great story, I'd be awfully suspicious about that.
Yeah.
You want your editor, their job is to find things to make it better. They should also point out things that are great for you, but they're looking hard at, okay, it was a good scene. How can I make it better? What suggestion can I give you that is not changing your voice, but enabling your voice to shine? And it's not changing the intent for the story, just making it more intense, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the last thing was, our website's fictionary.co, not .com, co. And we've got a Black Friday discount. So it's good for an annual, which is normally $200 for the year. And so we're selling it for $100.
That's
And it's
awesome.
good for monthly, which is normally $20. So that drops down to $10, and it's good for the first 12 months. So it goes for a
Awesome.
long time. Yeah. And
That's
we
a
have,
really great deal.
yeah, we like it because it's Black Friday and it should be something good. But you also get a 14-week story editing course with it. And so in that course, we go in depth into each element, and then we show you how to use Fictionary for that. And so it's a bit about learning how to edit and then how to use the tool. And it comes out every 5 days. So as you work through and you'll just get more and more out of Fictionary as you're working and learning and going through it.
That's awesome.
And I just have one last slide.
Yeah, and then we have a couple questions.
Yeah. Okay. And I just love to share something about me that's not writing and it's not editing. My side passion is training guide dogs. And these are some of the ones I've had. So Kinta's up at the top, and that's the man she's with now. And Jan is the one in the middle, and she's with us right now. Candy's off to another trainer. So she's the little puppy down at the bottom, and Farley's my dog. So I figured he deserved a spot there too. But when I'm trying to de-stress and not be worried about Fictionary and writing and editing and all these things, my go-to on the side is doing this. And I think everybody, with the way things are crazy in the world right now, needs something that's just pure joy in their lives that you feel good about. And that's my feel good thing.
Those puppies look like pure joy to me. That's amazing.
Candy in particular, we called her Pancake. She was such a cute little
Oh
thing.
my gosh, so cute.
Yeah.
Susan, all the Black Friday sales go until November 30th. So you can either go directly to the Fictionary site, or you can go to the womeninpublishingsummit.com site to our Black Friday post, and you'll get the same Black Friday 2020. You'll get the same discount through that as well. And there's Pro Writing Aid and all kinds of great partners. First Editing is running a great deal. All kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a good question. Patty wants to know, how does Fictionary pull apart or handle dual timelines or multiple point of view stories?
Right. So we'll answer those separately. Let's start with timelines. There, all you need to do in the setting portion where we list the time, if you want to keep track of, I don't know, it's a time travel book of 1500 and 2020. You can just put 1500, 2020 there. And when we have this beautiful thing called a story map, and it shows you can pick any elements, any combination. And so if you just wanted to look at scene names along with scene times, and maybe the characters who are in those scenes, you can pull up those things and you can scroll straight across and see, okay, I've done 4 scenes in the 1500s, 4 scenes in 2020. And you can look at your structure, see if you're balanced. So it's used that way. It's not used as a chronological chart where you would how some of the outlining tools use it. It's more to use to look at your structure. And point of view, same thing. So we have each scene, it'll mark who the point of view character is. And then what you want to do then is look at the balance of those, and does your protagonist have the most, and how many do you have? And what it's doing its best guess by analyzing the scene and thinking about who the point of view it doesn't think, but it analyzes it and thinks, I'm back to think. Pulls out the point of view. If it's wrong, you just pick a drop down menu and flip it over to whatever character does have the point of view. It struggles a bit on books that are single point of view, because quite often the character's name is not mentioned. So can't pull it out because the name is not there. So we have a button that says, if you write from single point of view, hit this button, and it sets every point of view from that character all the way through. Cool. And you don't have to deal with it.
That's a cool feature. Okay. And Mary Jo wants to know if Fictionary would also work for short fiction.
It'll work sort of 20,000 words or more. So it depends what you mean by short fiction. It's not meant for short stories because we need a certain word count to analyze the story arc. It's really the only thing that if the word count is too short, we do have people who use it for short stories, but that particular function isn't helpful to them because just because of the way the mathematical algorithms work, we need kind of 15 to 20,000 words to make that go.
Good to know. All right, we have a question from our Facebook audience. She says, first of all, thanks for your insight. And then she would like to know, what traps do you see writers fall into when writing in first person? What traps do you see writers fall into when writing in first person?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One is, if the character was not in a scene where something was revealed or happened, they can't know about it, even if it's something minor. So somebody has to tell them about it, or they have to see it. There was a voice message about it, but there has to be a scene where they're actively getting that piece of information. So you can't refer to, unless they're talking to another character and they're saying, hey, Alexa, wasn't that a fun movie we went to last night? Oh yeah, it was fun. But I was at the movie with you, even though it didn't show in the book, right? So it has to be something that they would know about. The other thing with first person is showing stuff that the person can't see. So I can't see what's behind me. So I can't describe, oh, the door behind me opened. I could describe, I heard a creaking door, but I can't describe somebody in the hallway. I can't describe what happened in the next room, upstairs, outside. I'm not there. So the most important thing is think about, what can your character sense? All of the senses. And that's the only thing that can be described in the scene.
Okay, another technical question about the tool. So it sounds like we enter some data and Fictionary pulls data from the manuscript. So can you clarify what Fictionary pulls out? Does it pull out characters, pacing, matching story arc, those types of things?
Yeah, so Fictionary will pull out your key scenes. So your inciting incident, plot point 1, midpoint, plot point 2, climax, and draw your story arc. It will separate your entire manuscript and organize it for you into chapters and scenes. And from that, it creates a word count report, which shows you in a bar graph your word count per scene for every scene. And so you can look at that and look at pacing. You can look at that and go, wow, all my scenes are under 1,500 words, but this one scene is 4,000 words. Why? Is it my climax scene? Is it something really important? Or is it a scene that could be broken into other scenes? And you can use it to go, I'd really like to pick up the pacing right here leading to the climax. Okay, so let's look at the word count per scenes there. So it pulls that out. It pulls out a full character list. And usually you need to do a little bit of work around that on either merging characters. So Dan and Daniel will be shown as two characters, but could be the same character. And if it is, you just merge them into one, and then the reports all build from that. Names like Virginia are difficult. Is that a female name or is it the state? So there needs to be a bit of tidying once the full cast of characters is there. And the funny feedback we get on that is it shows typos in names, because there'll be Tanya with YA and IA, which, if it's 20 scenes apart, no copy editor is picking up on that. You won't see it, right?
Right.
But Fictionary will show it to you and go, oh, look at all my typos in the names. And then it takes those names and it links them to scenes. And so in every scene, you can see who is in it or who's mentioned in it. And then your character count. You can check quickly, was a character in that scene where this big revelation happened? Because if they weren't, they can't know about it. And then it pulls out the point of view characters and fills those out for you. And then beyond that, there are lots of drop down things where you can pick, or it's just a click of a button, are the characters in motion or not? And then there's the thoughtful ones where you as the writer have to go through and articulate what you want from it.
Yeah, I'm getting some wows in comments. That's a lot. That's a really cool tool. Okay. So this is a great question. Can Fictionary help with passive voice? The biggest struggle of all writers, huh?
Yeah, so we don't look at things like that, but Pro Writing Aid does. And if you have the Pro Writing Aid extension, it works right within Fictionary. So as you're working on your scene, you can pop up Pro Writing Aid and have a look. Now, I recommend don't get too tempted on that until you finish your story edit. So usually what I say is finish your story edit and then go and do your copy editing. And so there's great tools. There's also Grammarly, AutoCrit, there's lots of tools for that. So we chose not to do any of that because it's done so well already, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Huge fans of Pro Writing Aid as well. Let's see. Okay. Does Fictionary tell you when you momentarily slip out of the POV character's head into someone else's within a scene?
No, you have to read that and know that yourself. So the idea is that up on the side, you've got Alexa listed as the point of view. And as you're reading your scene, you're paying attention to it.
Gotcha. Oh my goodness, it is not easy work to be a good writer. So
It's really, really, really hard.
wow. Okay, so Lisa wants to know, is there a learning tool along with Fictionary? Is the learning curve very steep?
So the feedback we've gotten, if you're used to using software, it's very easy. The
Mhm.
learning curve comes depending on how much you know about writing and the writing craft.
Yeah.
And so if you know kind of what all the elements are, you can just start working. If you don't, then you have to figure out, well, what does scene anchored mean, for example? And why am I thinking about it? And do I do it or not? So it's a hard question to answer because it does depend on the writer's knowledge of actual writing craft.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of. It doesn't look, the tool, as you were showing us, looks simple enough. It's the,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, do I even know, how to end each chapter with a hook? Or
yeah,
depending on the genre, I can see it being even more complicated. Because if you're writing a thriller or something that has a lot of action or something
mhm,
like that, as opposed to like a women's fiction where there might be a lot of, or literary fiction where there's a lot of exposition and a lot of other stuff.
right.
Oh,
Yeah, and so one thing I will say, we have a chat box. And so if there are questions, and I look at it every day,
cool.
that because I want to know what our writers are thinking and if they're having difficulties. And so if there's ever a question on how to use the software, we're there to answer it.
Awesome.
And we try and be as helpful as possible to get people going. We have a lot of videos on our learn page on Fictionary. And anytime someone asks me, oh, how do I do this? Or what does that mean? We try and make a video and put it up so that we're just building a library of more in-depth knowledge. And as the masterclass goes, it teaches more and more about how to use the insights. And, when you're looking at a point of view character report, what does that mean and how do you read it? And,
Mhm.
and how are you re-looking at it every time you revise your story? And it's changing every time you do that, which is kind of addictive because sometimes you're like, oh, I changed one. Oh, look, it's better. Oh, and you got to stop. Don't do that because it takes too much time.
Yes. Y'all, if you are truly trying to write a good story and you want to make sure that it is comprehensive and the editing is easier, which can save you so much money when editing is easy, don't miss this opportunity to get it at this discount. And if you can't afford the annual price, Kristina did say that the 50% off is good for the monthly price as well. So it's $10 a month. To me, that's a price you just can't afford not to have as you're working on becoming a better writer. I mean, you could pay thousands of dollars to go get your MFA, or you can pay $10 a month for a year or two to
Yeah.
Fictionary to have them help you. And a plug for the upcoming Women in Publishing Summit. I'm really excited about the panel that we've put together with Kristina from Fictionary and Lisa from Pro Writing Aid and Joellen from First Editing, about how all these pieces of the puzzle work together and how you go through the process and utilize these tools and utilize these different pieces as you write, as you story structure, as you edit. So I'm really looking forward to that
Yeah.
panel.
I'll just say a little bit about that. So we work with Pro Writing Aid and First Editing. We spend a lot of time looking for companies that really, truly care about writers. And that's part of the reason we chose them. And one of my missions that, because I edit a lot, I feel really sad when someone comes to me and said, well, I had a story edit done, and really what they had was a copy edit done, but they paid all this money. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is really educate people on what this is. And so if you're paying a lot of money, and edits are expensive, right? As a writer what you're getting, and
Yeah.
you can clearly ask the editor, what are they offering? And so it's not just someone who's put their hand up and said, I'm an editor. You're getting someone if you can actually ask a few questions.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And this is an inexpensive lesson that I've
Yep.
learned throughout the last few years, is really being able to determine quality of editors. So the slides that you provided were amazing with the checklists and all of those different elements. And I'll make sure that we get those and send them out with the replay as well. Again, don't forget, it's Black Friday 2020 is the coupon code. And I don't see any more questions. I don't see anything.
Good.
I'm sorry. There is a question on Facebook before I go. So will the
Okay.
annual renewal extend this discount, or will it go to full price?
I'm only hesitating because I can't remember what we did on. That's terrible. Oh, of course, that's the last question, and I'm thinking,
Well,
I don't know, but
we can
we'll
get
clarify
back to
that.
that. Yeah.
I gotta look at that one. Sorry.
Okay. Either way, I mean, such a great discount for
Well,
the
and
first year.
here's the beauty of it, is that next year at Black Friday, it's the same time, and we're gonna have a Black Friday sale.
I was going to
So-
say that, but I didn't want to assume that would be the case. So,
Oh, yes, and then we come out, we would probably have a different code, Black Friday 2021.
right,
But-
right. Okay, Mary Jo, the code is Black Friday 2020, all caps, correct? Black Friday 2020.
Yeah,
So,
and so just one thing on that, everybody gets a free trial. And so you get a 2-week free trial. So you load in your manuscript, you can play around. And as long as you enter the coupon before the end of that 2-week free trial, it's valid. So don't worry that if the date has gone by, it's still fine. You can put the coupon code at any time. If you have questions, ask me in the chat box and I will help you set up the coupon code.
that's amazing. So, okay, well, we're getting lots of thanks, lots of wows, this is amazing. So I'm really excited. I am going to go buy my version of it right now. I would have bought it sooner, but we've been slammed. So no, I really like to use the tools, and I'm excited to do this. Writing well. It's like actually my 6th novel, but I have yet to finish one. And you know what? It's largely because of all the things that we just talked about. Like I get so like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle this next piece of it. And so I'm really excited to put this to use and see if I can actually finish one of my books. So yay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. We will have the replay, the slides, everything available for you within 24 hours. And I really appreciate you taking the time out, Kristina, to be here.
Mike,
Thank you so much. Happy
thank you.
Thanksgiving to everybody, all the Americans in the crowd. And we will see you. Please make sure that you go to the womeninpublishingsummit.com page and check at the events. We're running a webinar every month, a free webinar every month, and a paid workshop every month, and all kinds of great stuff going on to make sure we're providing lots of tools and resources to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. It was a really nice audience today.
All right. Bye, Kristina.
Bye.